Thank you, everybody, for taking out your time out today during lockdown to learn a little bit about Commerce Cloud, upgrading and containerizing your SAP digital commerce environment. Now, here what I'm showing you now is all the focus areas here at NIMBL, right? We work on Google Cloud Platform on the lower left. We do analytics. We do intelligent enterprise up on the upper left. But today we're talking about commerce and SAP Commerce. I wanted to really highlight what are our differentiators and what makes us different. Well, 10 plus years working in SAP ERP and S4HANA plus digital commerce, being able to integrate those two platforms is our differentiator. But going back to today, what are we going to learn? What are we going to focus on? I'm going to talk a little bit about SAP's position on digital commerce, SAP Commerce or SAP Hybris on-premise versus SAP Commerce Cloud. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Talk about versions of SAP Commerce for those of you that don't know or are new to this ecosystem. I'm sure we have some attendees today that have SAP Hybris and are here to figure out how to upgrade and migrate to Google Cloud. But we've also had a lot of interest from net new customers, customers that don't have a digital commerce platform and are interested in SAP Commerce. So we're going to talk a little bit about upgrades. We're going to talk about a serverless migration, right? Moving to a serverless environment using Docker, using Kubernetes, and moving to that auto-scale landscape. And I'm also going to share some upgrade and migration project examples today so that you can see real-world scenarios of what did the customer's environment look like, what were the changes that they had to implement to get here, and what were some of the benefits that they enjoyed when they got through that, right? And of course, nothing is painless in the SAP ecosystem in terms of upgrades and migrations. You know, we have issues, we have things that we need to work on, and I'll talk about those as well. So, digital commerce in the SAP ecosystem, right? I couldn't leave a webinar today without having at least one COVID slide present. But what COVID and the stay-at-home orders have done is reinforce the need for digital communication channels, right? Reinforces the need for the requirement that businesses need to have that commerce channel available to their customers, their B2B partners, their B2C customers, at all points, at all times, right? Field services, field sales, they're disabled right now. We can't go out and sell, and that includes NIMBL, right? So customers are using our website to figure out who we are and what we do and how to interact with us. They're attending our conferences like this. Same thing for you. Whether you're a consumer packaged goods company or a services company, you have to have that digital sales channel. Now, in terms of commerce platforms, naturally when you're looking at or evaluating at commerce platforms or deciding, do I upgrade to SAP Commerce 1905, or do I move and change my platforms? I'm going to be looking at a variety of things. I want to make sure it's globally available, cloud native, right? I need to be able to run everything in cloud. I ideally want a low-code environment or low-code capability so that my marketers, my business analysts can modify, enhance, configure the commerce environment on their own without the need for IT. Yes, I need embedded intelligence. I need personalization. In this age, it's no longer just good enough to have a product catalog and say, buy now. That is the bare minimum 5 years ago. Today, we need to have intelligence. We need to be presenting content, presenting catalog items, presenting services to consumers, whether B2B or B2C, that is relevant to what they're after and what they're looking for. When looking at commerce environments, I also want seamless upgrades. I want the ability to move new code, new features into environments quickly without a lot of manipulation of my infrastructure, right? I need to be able to move new code into the environment, test it, get it to production as rapidly as possible with the lowest cost possible. And if you're a Hybris customer today, you want to look at upgrades and figure out, well, how do I do this and not disrupt my current e-commerce environment? And I'm going to talk about a customer that was live and moving to their 1905 environment. So just a quick recap of where SAP is in terms of the digital commerce ecosystem. If you're picking SAP's Commerce Cloud or SAP Commerce on-premise, you can't go wrong, right? There's a battle for first between three players, in my opinion: Adobe with Magento, Salesforce and CloudCraze, and SAP Commerce or SAP Hybris. Right? They're the number one, number two, number three at any given point of the year in terms of digital commerce, as recognized by Gartner and Forrester and all the other analysts out there. So when you're in this ecosystem, you're already dealing with best of breed. For those customers that are joining the phone today that don't use SAP Commerce or SAP Hybris, just a reminder of what it is. Number one, it's a platform, right? It's a digital commerce platform, meaning it provides a product catalog and product content capabilities, content management capabilities. It provides web content management. It enables search within your platform so that as you load content into your product catalogs with images and specifications and names and short descriptions and long text descriptions, it manages that search and indexing of all those capabilities. It also manages order management, right? Customers being able to add to cart and build an order and then submit that order and transition that back into SAP ERP or S4 HANA so that you have that end-to-end order management. And I think on our next webinar series, we're going to be talking about that end-to-end integration between SAP's SAP Hybris, SAP Commerce, and S4. And we'll do some live demos of that as well. Again, this SAP Commerce platform instantly provides mobility because by default, it's progressive web applications and applications that scale to any device, whether your B2B or B2C partners on a phone, a tablet, a Chrome PC, a Mac, or a Windows laptop. Then it needs to adapt to each different platform. It needs to look amazing. It needs to be easy to use, and it needs to be fast. Along with this platform provided by SAP Commerce is personalization, right? The ability for that person to add favorites, leave reviews, ignore content that's not relevant to them, only see content and ads and marketing and product that is relevant to them, right? That's that personalization feature is built into the platform. Naturally, SAP Commerce, SAP Hybris being part of the SAP ecosystem, it comes with integrations to other SAP components. That could be integration with SAP Marketing Cloud, SAP Sales Cloud, SAP Service Cloud, SAP CPQ, Configure Price Quote, SAP Sales Commissions, SAP S4 HANA, SAP Analytics Cloud, and the list goes on and on and on. I think SAP has over 260 software components in its ecosystem, and it is beginning to be really complex in trying to remember all of them. Now, an SAP Digital Commerce Platform, just sitting out there as a storefront where people can buy and order product from, naturally there are going to be B2B and B2C partners that need support. They need customer service. You know, they need to chat with somebody. They need to talk to somebody. They're confused about a product. We do everything we can to put as much content into our product catalog, into our digital storefront, so people don't need to talk to somebody. But it's going to happen. It does happen. And SAP Commerce does provide that customer service platform whereby a customer service agent can adopt the persona of that B2B, B2C partner, that consumer that logs into the web app, into the storefront. So I'm a consumer. I'm building my shopping cart. I'm building my catalog. I'm building out a shopping cart, and I need some assistance. Does this product go with this product? I don't know. Well, right, we can engage in the conversation with customer service through chat, through phone, and then enable that customer service rep to see my cart as I'm building it, and then add and remove items in my cart for me. This is the required minimum for digital commerce today, right? You have to be doing these things in order to be relevant. So last time we met through our SAP Commerce webinar, we talked about SAP Commerce and Spartacus. Spartacus being the new storefront experience based on Angular. I wanted to talk a little bit about SAP Commerce version. So if you're already a Hybris customer today, you already know this. But for customers that are just getting involved and you're confused in the numbering and naming, releases 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, where I think a majority of customers are running today, and 6.7 was released in 2018. A lot of implementations done, a lot of successful customers operating and running. That does become end of life this year. 1905 is the most recent release with a 24-month support period. I do expect 2005 to be released in May as the next release of Commerce. And I've provided down here at the bottom of the slide, which everybody on this webinar will receive a copy of the slide deck, with two important links for you. The releases page, so you can keep track of all these releases and dates. And number two, the deprecation status page. As SAP enhances functionality in SAP Commerce between releases, naturally some functionality is being deprecated and falling out of the product portfolio. So it's super important for you as a customer to keep track of that. And SAP has done a good job documenting what have they deprecated between releases as you upgrade. Now, do I need to go from 6.7 to 1808 to 1811 to 1905? You can do that. Can I go from 6.7 to 1905 in one step? And the answer is yes, you can do that as well. We're going to talk about that during our customer project example later in the deck. So why upgrade, right? Well, We don't want to upgrade for the sake of upgrades, right? We don't want to upgrade just because we want the shiny badge and the new version. That's not fiscally responsible to do those types of upgrades. We need to drive some value. Well, number one, by maintaining with a current release of SAP Commerce, you're maximizing the value of your SAP Enterprise maintenance, right? If you're paying 22% enterprise maintenance on SAP Commerce, that is silly of you to be paying a maintenance and not taking advantage of upgrades, because that enterprise maintenance is then going to help desk tickets, right? And if you're only entering 5 to 10 to 15 support tickets a year with SAP, then those are very expensive support tickets. SAP, as part of enterprise maintenance, is providing you with functionality, features, and upgrades that we need to adopt quickly in order to maximize the value of the platform that we've deployed in our landscape. And I know this is difficult, but we want to make it easier. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So I get new functionality, new innovation. In terms of personalization, I find a lot of customers in 6.5, 6.6, 6.7 that were building some of their own personalization features, functions in Hybris, and now that's standard feature function delivered with newer versions of Commerce. So simplification, replacing some of your custom code with standard features and functions. That's fantastic. You're pushing the burden of maintenance to SAP rather than your own internal custom development teams, as long as it's a like for like in terms of functionality. Integration. With each release of SAP Commerce, we get better integration with S4, bar none. And I'm going to talk about the API page where you can go browse the APIs and the integrations for synchronous, not just asynchronous, not just flat file-based integration between Commerce and S4, but synchronous communication using OData to get real-time pricing, real-time inventory checks, real-time estimate ship dates, real-time order entry, real-time pricing, right? Between Commerce and S4, those APIs do exist, and you only get the good ones as you upgrade Commerce and are running S4. And then the deprecation I talked about. You might be using features and functions that SAP is deprecating. And speaking of enhancements, Smart Edit, right? Some customers don't use this or may not know that they have this capability, but you do have ability to use Smart Edit on more recent versions of SAP's Commerce. It is a tool that it is WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. It allows, again, those marketers, those business analysts, those senior e-commerce analysts to be able to modify the e-commerce storefront, whether it's B2B or B2C, and not require a developer, right? We want to push maintenance of the e-commerce platform outside of IT into the business and give them control. I talked a little bit about pre-built integrations and how do you find those? Well, api.sap.com, search for SAP Commerce, and you'll see, number one, the API sandbox where you can play with APIs and test them out. And you'll also have the ability to download those prepackaged APIs for S/4HANA between Commerce and SAP Commerce and S4 so that you can deploy them in your landscape. Now, by default, a lot of these integrations are delivered through SAP Cloud Platform Integration Services. Saying that, though, your teams, if you don't use SAP Cloud Platform Integration Services, maybe you're an Apogee customer, maybe you are a MuleSoft customer. Well, you can still use these APIs because they will educate your team on the S4 OData gateway resources for real-time inventory checks, for availability ship checks, things like that. So there's still a lot of valuable content there. So it's not just for a customer that bleeds SAP and only runs SAP. If you run a hybrid environment and you have a different middleware platform, then you can still kind of use this to reverse engineer those APIs to S4. I talked about assisted service. I think this is a great feature function introduced 2 releases ago, I believe, in Hybris. We're on Hybris 1905 now. 2005, I think, would be released this month. What is assisted service? It provides a simple screenshot, right? A customer calls into customer service, says, I'm having trouble finding an item or building my shopping cart. Customer service can adopt that customer session and modify their cart, modify their payment methods, help them complete their purchase on that e-commerce site. And that's a feature function already built, already provided by SAP out of the box that you can use, but you have to be on a recent release of SAP Commerce to get it. And then context-driven services. Again, I talked about personalization. Well, this is personalization to the next level when it comes to presenting dynamically content specific to that users based on their purchase history, based on their browse history of our storefront, and making sure that we remind them that they were looking at this and then, oh, by the way, you forgot to buy this or things like that. So I do love this Adidas satchel right here. I wish I could buy that. But all right, so we talked a little bit about all these cool features that you get if you upgrade. If I don't upgrade, I don't get these new features and functions, right? I don't maximize the value of my SAP enterprise maintenance. Well, upgrading and containerization, right? In this customer scenario, they wanted to upgrade their environment, but they also needed to figure out a way to cost optimize their infrastructure. And they were in a hosting model that I think is very common amongst the SAP Commerce, SAP Hybris customers out there in the marketplace. So let's talk a little bit about this customer. Number one, they have B2B and B2C sites deployed in North America only. 80% of the revenue is driven through their e-commerce storefront. The company, by the way, is roughly about $4 billion in revenue. And this is a lot of revenue, obviously, they're driving through their e-commerce, their digital commerce storefronts. So today they have Hybris 6.7 running with a HANA 1.0 database and Red Hat Enterprise 6. So they got a couple things that are coming out of maintenance, right? Number one, they have Red Hat ending in November. They have Hybris 6.7, which again the CIO wasn't sweating this as much because, all right, SAP says I'm out of support, but I've been running the platform for 2 years now, and any bug that I would have had with SAP's code, I would have found it by now. So he wasn't sweating this too much. But I'm running HANA 1.0 SP12, so HANA 2.0 I think is SP6 already, so I'm not getting into the new capabilities of HANA 2.0. And then my operating system, I want to maintain proper security controls, make sure I have the latest fixes from Red Hat from a security perspective. So I want to fix those two things. Second contention, second issue. Right, they had a traditional SAP Hybris landscape hosted in a private cloud, hosted by an SAP certified hosting provider. And there's nothing wrong with that hosting provider. It was just the cost model was becoming inefficient. They had 36 application servers in production plus a HANA database, and then its DR component as well. QA, 20 application servers plus a HANA database plus its DR because we need to be able to test failover. And then development, and then sandbox, right? And so this Hybris environment had ballooned to over 100 different application servers, where at any given time, 80% of their environment was idle. So they were paying for compute, they're paying for storage, they're paying for operating system maintenance, they're paying for hosting and backups of systems that aren't being utilized. How do I cost optimize, get to the latest release of Hybris, and ideally provide my development team an environment where they can deliver innovation more quickly to the business, right? And that's where Google Cloud, Kubernetes, and Docker come in, right? The goal was we're going to upgrade our environment, we're going to migrate to Google Cloud Platform, we're going to do our OS upgrades, we're going to get everything done that we need to get done, and oh, by the way, we're going to move away from this static landscape where we're hosting servers and paying for hardware that's not even being used. And this is moving from that fixed scale to elastic scale, right? On the left side of the screen, we have our system size top to bottom to top, and then we have our time horizon, and then we have the yellow line, which is our actual utilization of the servers. So in the fixed scale world, it's fixed hardware costs, fixed system size, and what happens? Well, we oversize our production environment because we want to be able to handle Black Friday, new product launches, holiday sales, et cetera, you name it, right? What if we can move to dynamic resource management? What if we could move to an environment that grows and shrinks as demand grows and shrinks? So at 3 a.m. when we're only servicing a handful of customers that are browsing it late at night, fantastic. The systems, the platform scales down to a size that is there to support the 15 to 20 users using the platform. But on New Product Thursdays, when we push new product out to our site, and we have a loyal fan base and a loyal community, and they want to check out those new products, and I have 600,000 requests coming in on Thursday afternoon, fantastic. Let's build an environment that scales to meet that demand. So no more fixed cost, no oversized, undersized systems, and true dynamic resource management. Now, this being a technical webinar, we have to do a little bit of drawings. So up top, we have SAP HANA in what's called Google Compute. This is the traditional hosting virtualization that SAP HANA has been known for years. I am not in this presentation talking about containerizing SAP HANA. SAP HANA has some limitations with active-active sessions and active-active connections that we can get into in another time. SAP HANA is a fantastic database, and I love it, and I don't want to poo-poo it to anybody. But Google Cloud SQL, Azure SQL, these cloud-based autoscaling SQL database environments are very good in these e-com scenarios. But talking about more importantly about SAP Commerce. So SAP Commerce, we have our Storefront, and I'm just gonna let's see if I can use my pen. So we have our Storefront here. We have our back office admin component for Hybris, our background processing, our API, and then our Solar nodes for our search and indexing, right? So those are the back-end components, and each one of those components sits inside of a pod, a Docker container sitting inside of a pod in Kubernetes. And then we have our Apache web servers up front that's hosting out the web applications. Then we have our cloud load balancing at the very bottom, right? That's the development landscape. And each one of these components could be as small as 2 processors and 4 gig of memory or 8 gig of memory, whatever we decide the size can be. Now, when looking at an auto-scaling landscape, production, well, as demand increases, and remember, Apache is also auto-scaling as well. Web application server is auto-scaling. The back-end Hybris components are auto-scaling. Where now, as demand is increasing, I am spinning up more Docker containers within these, spinning up more pods to handle that increased workload in that Google Kubernetes landscape, right? So as those 60,000 requests come into the website on a Thursday afternoon, my application will auto-scale, auto-grow. At 3 a.m. when no one's browsing my site, it'll automatically shrink back down to a single pod if I choose, or 2, or whatever my minimum is I decide. So a true auto-scale landscape. Now, obviously the next question that everybody asks us is, well, how do I do this, right? What do I do? Well, what we first do is, more than likely, you already have a Git repository for your SAP Commerce, SAP Hybris environment. And what we need to do is take that Git repository and we need to move it to a GCP repository. And once it's inside GCP's repository, we're going to do some modifications. We're going to restructure it. We're going to make sure all of your extensions, customizations are in the custom folder under Hybris bin. We're going to modify the config to make sure it has all of your properties and aspects that you're utilized in your Hybris environment. In the installer folder, what we'll do is we're going to create new Gradle files and the Dockerized install scripts. We're building a brand new cloud build YAML file, and then obviously we need the Commerce binaries, right? You need the actual binaries. So each time a Docker container is started, it's essentially, right, starting from scratch. It's initiating a Docker container, it's installing Hybris, it's applying all of my settings, and then it's sending a message to the Google Load Balancer that says, hey, I'm ready to accept requests, start sending me web traffic. Now, in terms of development time, or development lifecycle, it becomes a little bit easier and a little bit more automated. I know that if you're an SAP customer on the phone and you're coming from the SAP ERP S/4HANA world, you know that we do development in dev, and then we add it to a transport, and then it's sort of automated from QA to production. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to move files. We don't have to do anything. That's a very similar environment here with Jenkins, and being able to, make modifications to our repository in Git inside of the Google's Cloud repository, push those changes down to the Docker images, push that into a staging namespace, push that into production namespace, and have our end users use it. So simplified development landscape. There is some minor configuration that we have to do here to make this work inside of the cloud-based repository. But I want to talk about the auto-scaling limitation because that's where everybody wants to go. They want to know, how does it work? Well, number one, I'm setting what my min and max are for my container, right? So I'm saying you're going to start with 4 gig and you can go to a max of 8 gig. Oh, and by the way, when we talk about the auto-scaling features, right, we're going to do a horizontal pods auto-scaler. Here I've set some limits, a minimum of 2, maximum of 5. This is something I would do in development environment. I want to cost optimize my development in QA. I don't want QA to spin up to 99 servers or 100 user servers or whatever. In production, you would set this to unlimited more than likely. But right here, right, 85, that's the number. When a container hits 85% CPU utilization, go ahead and start another Docker container up. And continue doing so as web traffic increases, continue scaling out, continue building out my landscape, continue adding web application servers, storefront servers, back office processing, API instances, continue adding them as needed when CPU grows to 85%. Now, just because I ran out of screen space here, I also have settings where I will say, well, as things are idle, go ahead and kill those pods, right? Go ahead and kill those instances and scale back down. And when I kill it, I notify the load balancer and say, hey, instead of 5 pods, now you only have 2. Okay, well, the load balancer is communicating inside of this Kubernetes environment and knows that now I'm only going to send requests to these 2 pods. Now, I don't know if everybody here on the phone knows this, but Google invented Kubernetes, right? So Docker community project been around. Google invented Kubernetes from an orchestration perspective, and inside of GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, inside of Google Cloud Platform, I have all the monitoring tools I need to keep after or monitor my SAP Commerce environment in Kubernetes. I have everything I need to monitor the requests coming in, how they're flowing, CPU utilization, memory utilization, application response time. I can set up liveness probes. I can set up quality checks. All of this alerting is part of the Google Cloud Platform. So at no point in my environment am I ever left wondering, do I have enough resources? Are we sized appropriately? Is the system responding correctly? What are the air states, air conditionings? Did a pod go stale on me? Why did it go stale? When did it go stale? How do I quickly, can I enable some self-healing features where if a single pod is not responding to requests anymore, I'm going to let GKE terminate it and spin up another one on its own, right? So creating that auto-scaling environment, creating that self-healing environment, using probes provided by Google to check the state of applications, and then enable rules that enable it to correct itself, right? This is the IT nirvana, right? I was an AS400 operator, and I loved working on the IBM I series because it made me look good, and it's self-healing and self-correcting. It's such a cool I series mid-range system. But now going back to Hybris and digital commerce here. Right, and using GKE to make IT look good. That's my job. That's what I like to do. Now, getting to this environment, right? Is it a year? Is it half a year? What is it? And we're doing pilots. We're taking an existing Hybris environment. We're upgrading it and moving it to GKE using Docker Kubernetes. We're doing this in 2 to 3 weeks, and full projects in that 12 to 16 week time frame. So this is not a task that takes months to realize, months to implement, and then months to realize savings. Using, for example, in this environment, this customer's environment that was using SAP HANA, using HANA as a database, and this is included for SQL Server and or SQL Server as well, DB2, MySQL. We can use database replication technologies to replicate from private cloud or on-premise into Google Cloud, so that your cutover is as fast as changes can be made. Your environment's up and running in GKE and Docker containers. It's running on Google Cloud Platform, accepting requests, and the only real downtime that you'll experience is during that DNS change, pointing it from your private cloud back to Google Cloud. We do this off hours. We do this in low volume. We put up maintenance pages and notifications, and we do everything we can to educate the user community. But you can do this very quickly. So 12 to 16 weeks is our typical project. Obviously, you start, Google's involved. We let them know what we're working on. They're very supportive of these moves. They're providing expertise and subject matter experts to help us, NIMBL, and you, the customer, through this process. We prepare the project repository, kick off the project team, provision those environments, prepare for connectivity back into S4. Is that going to be public internet? Is it going to be VPN? We set all that up. We do a quality gate review with Google, NIMBL, and you. Then we go into delivery mode. We build that cloud repository. We deploy the Docker Containers Kubernetes engine. We do our performance testing. There are a variety of tools we can use for this. We can use StormRunner from HP if we want to simulate load like end users through a browser, through any place in the globe. We can use open source tools through the Apache Foundation, to JMeter. Right? We prepare our content servers, our media, our CDNs, make sure everything's set up, everything's correctly working. Do a quality gate review again with NIMBL and Google and you, the customer. We build our cutover plan. Obviously, cutover plan starts being built day one. It culminates in having a final one, enabling that proactive monitoring in Google, going live, launching the site, and then getting into the cool stuff. right? When you're running on Google Cloud Platform, if you're only running servers, Hybris on Google Cloud, and that's it, you're not taking advantage of the true power of GCP. Google Analytics, tags, advertising, analytics for your Hybris storefront, your SAP Commerce storefront. Google has obviously is in the ad business, so to speak, and they know best how to deploy web analytics and have wonderful tools that we can deploy inside of SAP Commerce. Looking forward, I could not talk about SAP Commerce if I don't talk about Headless architecture and Spartacus. Remember, Spartacus is that Angular JavaScript-based storefront that SAP is pushing innovation towards. It's open source. It's available for you to fork on GitHub. It is fully extensible, and it is a shift in technology. And we talked about this on our last webinar. Hybris, 1808 and below, your storefront and commerce platform were all in one inside of Hybris. Well, the headless platform is when the storefront is decoupled from SAP Commerce. And as a reminder, if you're running SAP Commerce Cloud, you don't have to run the Spartacus storefront in SAP Commerce Cloud. You can run the Spartacus storefront anywhere you want. Google Cloud makes the most sense because, again, it can be Dockerized. And we can run that Angular, that Spartacus storefront inside of Kubernetes engine, inside of a Docker container on GCP. And you can have, again, Spartacus is a headless storefront where I can have multiple storefronts, one for brand A, brand B, brand C, and then it is all coming back using APIs for SAP Commerce, hitting an extension factory if you purchase some extensions or want working with SAP like context-driven services, or I'm hitting my third-party APIs for payment processing, whatever notifications you might be working on. So it is a good time to be an SAP Commerce customer because you have a tremendous amount of flexibility and capability and choice in where you run your storefronts. Now, Spartacus, I do have a link here for the demo storefront if you want to play with that. Obviously, I talked about how it's available on GitHub as well. So today we talked about SAP's position on digital commerce. Yes, they have a Commerce Cloud offering. Yes, SAP Commerce is still supported on premise. There is the code base between SAP Commerce Cloud and SAP Commerce is the same. This is stated by SAP as part of their roadmap. It is not a different version or a new version. It is the exact same version. SAP Commerce and SAP Commerce Cloud, same code base, same binaries. We talked about versions. I talked about upgrading commerce environments. I talked about that customer and their project timeline to move to containerized SAP Commerce deployment where now they're cost optimized. So rather than supporting 100+ application servers, operating systems, patching, maintenance, backups, disaster recovery for all of those systems, I move to Google Kubernetes engine. I store my Docker images in a repository in Google Cloud. I store my code, my configuration, my config, my installer in a repository in Google Cloud, and it is maintained by the company that runs the best data centers in the world. Product documentation, webinars, product roadmaps, things that you can find out more information. I've listed those here. Obviously, there's always sap.com/cxworks. A lot of the information that I've presented today is things that I've learned while attending webinars, working in the product, deploying SAP Commerce for customers. You too can go find this content. Now, with that, Jake, I would like to open it up for questions.
Absolutely. So we have a couple questions from the audience, Mike. First one is from Rich. Rich asks, what does a small pilot project look like, and is it expensive?
Rich, that's a great question. I think, I always like to joke that this is not a 2 project. These are not 2 projects. That does not mean to be $1 million to do this. All right, so number one, GCP. Number one, as a corporation, you typically can sign up for an account with GCP, Google, and get some credits out of the box. It is very inexpensive to set up a repository, to set up some cloud storage for your media, and then taking your on-premise Hybris environment, it's very easy to create a Git repo from that Hybris environment and move it into Google Cloud, manipulate it, and begin containerizing and seeing your site run in Docker. In general, when a customer already has a 1905 environment, it has taken us between 5 and 8 days to to Dockerize it and show that customer a working version of their commerce environment inside of Google Kubernetes. So typically a pilot or proof of concept could be anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks, depending on complexity, NDAs, onboarding, connectivity, things like that. Google's also there to support. I would say they're very aggressive in their support of SAP customers, so that's very good. So it is not expensive. It's typically 1 to 2 resources from NIMBL, some credits with SAP to host your backend database. I'm sorry, some credits with Google Cloud or purchasing Google Cloud instances to host HANA or SQL, MySQL, whatever your database is, plus Hybris application server. So in general, these pilots are less than 20K, 25, 30K. You can take your Hybris environment and show it running in Google Cloud and show the business that you can move to a true auto-scaling landscape, right? Just like Netflix, just like Facebook, just like Amazon, I can move my storefront into an environment that scales with demand so that I am cost optimized. So great question about the pilot and POC. Don't be afraid of it. Typically 2 to 3 weeks of effort and not very expensive relative to all things SAP.
Cool. I don't know whether or not you addressed this actually during the presentation specifically, but Kedar wants to know, can I use my existing development tools with a new landscape on Google Cloud?
More than likely, yes. More than likely, your development teams today are using are maintaining a Git repo, a repository somewhere in your environment. You may not know where it is, but it's there somewhere. Every developer I know has Git installed on their laptop, and yes, you can use the same development tools. We do need to adjust their thinking in terms of the build pipeline and how code is manipulated in the Google Cloud repository and then promoted from dev, stage, prod. So there is some education. Google provides a lot of training around this. We can provide training around this as well. But I think what you'll find is that developers will enjoy working in a Dockerized environment more so than working in their traditional on-prem hosted environments in a private cloud or on-premise data center.
Cool. And we had another one pop up as you were answering the last one. Danya wants to know, does containerization help me deploy my commerce site globally or in new countries?
So this is a good strategy or good question around. I run. Let's say you have a B2B storefront, and your B2B storefront is deployed in the Americas today. It's deployed in the United States and Canada. And you want to begin a digital storefront in Brazil, you want to begin a digital storefront in Europe or in Asia or Australia, right? So geographically, we don't, those individuals could traverse the pond and connect to your commerce site in North America. But using Kubernetes, we can begin building Kubernetes clusters inside of those regions, pushing the front-end storefront to geographically into those markets, so that when a customer in Europe is connecting, the Google load balancer knows, hey, I'm going to geolocate by DNS by IP. So a customer that connects to bnimble.com in Germany is going to be routed to the storefront that's hosted in Europe on Google Cloud. But if that customer is sitting in Denver, types in bnimble.com, it detects that I'm in Colorado, it's going to connect me to my storefront that sits inside of the United States, the same for Brazil, the same for Australia. So yes, this is an enabler. Moving to Kubernetes, containerizing SAP Commerce, containerizing SAP Hybris is an enabler for your global deployment. Moving into new markets, bringing your storefront closer to the user based on their geography, based on their IP.
Looks like that's all the questions for now. All right, cool. So I want to say thank you again to everybody who joined us. Big thanks to Mike. Covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to Mike directly. His email is listed at michaelpytel@bnimble.com. Thanks so much, Mike, for a great presentation. And everybody have a great week and weekend. Thanks so much.